Hillary Snyder is a physician assistant, a former PSPA board member, government affairs committee member, and currently serves in the physician assistant seat on the Pennsylvania State Board of Osteopathic Medicine. Hillary has had a long interest in PA advocacy dating back to PA school when she was a student at the Philadelphia College of Osteopathic Medicine. She has held elected roles within the PSPA before accepting the governor's nomination to the PA State Board of Osteopathic Medicine. A PA since 2009, Hillary has worked in the ER and now practices clinically, PRN, in the anesthesia division of surgical oncology at Fox Chase Cancer Center. In her free time, she enjoys running, biking, weightlifting, and exploring her interest in nutrition. She lives in the Philadelphia suburbs with her husband and 5 boys. I cannot wait to share this conversation with you. Hillary is amazing at all things advocacy, and at the end of this episode, you will feel compelled to get involved and change the face of the profession. I'm Tracy Bingaman. I'm a full-time working mom of 5 who got sick, burned out, quit my job, and now I teach women how to mom smarter, not harder. The pressures of modern motherhood are intense. You're a busy working mom juggling all the balls and living in fear of dropping the exact wrong one. Here you'll find the tools you've been searching for to confidently prioritize your life and optimize your ability to rock all the hats that you choose to wear. I'll show you how to break through your limiting beliefs so you'll have more time and more money than you know what to do with. Because even in the busiest seasons of life, you can grow to master your money, own your time, and be the mom with all the margin. This is Fulfilled as a Mom. All right, Hillary, welcome to the show. I am so excited to dive into this conversation today. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks so much for having me. I'm excited as well.
All right, so tell us about you, who you are, what you do, and who you have with you in your life going through this journey.
So, my name's Hillary Snyder. I'm a mom. First of all, I have 5 kids aged 13 to 5. All boys. So that, and my husband of 16 years now, Neil. So that's who I have going through this life with me. I've been a PA physician assistant for 13 years. Makes it easy because my oldest is 13 and I had him 3 days before graduation. So always easy to know how long I've been a PA. For fun, things I like to do for fun is, I really enjoy live music and concerts, that kind of thing. I am really into physically active stuff. So I like yoga, running mostly, Pilates, that kind of stuff. And also really love cooking and nutrition and things like that.
Cool. Tell me about the role that you play in the PSPA. So if you are not a PA in PA, you might not know that the PSPA is the Pennsylvania Society of Physician Assistants. So what do you do there? What sparked this interest to get involved and to advocate for our profession?
So my role with the PSPA has kind of evolved over time. Currently, I am on the Government Affairs Committee, and I have recently been one of the delegates for the AAPA, the American Academy of Physician Assistants, HOD, House of Delegates. So a delegate representative from Pennsylvania to the National House of Delegates meeting that happens at our national conference every year. In the past, I've been involved in the PSPA as a board member. I've done 2 separate terms, a 4-year term, and then most recently a 1-year term, which I had to resign from in order to accept a nomination to the Pennsylvania State Osteopathic Medical Board seat. And this is kind of the whole theme of what we're talking about today, but part of our advocacy with the PSPA and kind of improving practice in the state of Pennsylvania, one of the tenets of that was legislating a permanent board seat for PAs, both on our state medical board and our state osteopathic medical board in Pennsylvania. And I was fortunate enough to be nominated to as the first PA to have that permanent seat on the osteopathic medical board. So That's kind of my involvement from so it's not just the PSPA, but from an advocacy and now from the regulatory side, as a osteopathic medical board member.
So, why does this matter? So, we're both PAs. We both practice clinically, because less than we used to, but we are still practicing clinically bedside. Why does this representation from either a regulatory standpoint or lobbying, and whether it's at a state or a federal level, why does this matter when it comes to, hey, I'm a PA, I'm bedside, I'm taking care of patients? Like, what difference does this make?
Yeah, I mean, and this kind of goes to why I got involved in the first place. So I came at the PA profession as a second career. I was an athletic trainer initially, and I was able to learn. I think I had the benefit of having, a previous profession and kind of seeing the way that, and there is, you take care of athletes as an athletic trainer. And so a lot of what you can and cannot do is also governed by laws, and athletic trainers in Pennsylvania are licensed as well. So I was able to kind of understand that part of, helping people, and the way that there are laws that protect the public from people who, either treat patients or take care of athletes and things like that. So I kind of saw that as an athletic trainer. And then so when I went to PA school, I kind of realized right away that this is something that, I was interested in. And it really matters because, we are in a position of, patients come to us in a position of vulnerability. And because of that, there is a duty on the state to kind of protect, and federally as well, to protect patients and make sure that the providers that are out there are helping people. And so there are laws, there are regulations, and there's legislation that governs and dictates what you can and can't do in your practice at your state and federally. And so your bedside, even though no one's standing there watching you, what you can and can't do is really um, determined by what your laws are in your state, and where you practice. And some things that we do in Pennsylvania are going to be different than the way they do them in New York or New Jersey or Delaware. And that's because the way that the different state governments have legislated PA practice in their states. And so, talking about like the lobbying, and then once you have the laws, the way it's regulated, if you're not at the table talking to the people who are writing the laws, they're not going to know what your um, bedside every day needs to be, what your patients need you to be able to do, and what's going to be the best thing for the people that you're trying to help in your practice. So if you're not involved, or if you don't help the people who want to, maybe you don't want to be involved, fine. Help the people who want to be involved, support your, you know, the people who have those interests. If you're not a part of that in some way, shape, or form, then you're really just forfeiting your ability to advocate and improve your patient's experience in all of healthcare in your state. And it's national as well. But the day-to-day practice really is a lot more dictated at the state level.
So, if you're listening to this and you're a PA or even another professional in the medical space, what's the least thing that you can do? You're like,
Yeah,
I'm already at capacity. Like, I have all the things and all the people and all the
yeah.
things I need to deal with. Like, what is the one kind of lowest thing that someone can do to get involved and to support?
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing you can do is be a member of your state society. I know a lot of people like to be members of their national organization. There are some benefits that come, or just because it's like a conference and you need continuing education, and so you get the membership because it's like cheaper than if you didn't have a membership. The national organizations do a lot. They do a lot to support the state organizations, but really, the on the ground, in the room kind of people or are from your state organization. So at the bare minimum, just sign up get that membership form and be a member of your state organization. I mean, I've been there. When I first, even though I had some involvement when I was a PA student, I did a internship where I was able to be on one of the committees at a national level and see the hard work that our national organization, both volunteers and staff members, do to help support the legislative goals and the advancement of the profession at the national level. That was an amazing experience as a student to see. My first couple years of practice, I was not involved. I was not. I think I kept my membership active with the PSPA, but I was not volunteering. I had young kids and I was working and I was keeping my head above water, and that was it. So I've been there as well. And it seems like you don't need to worry about it, and it's not something you can even have the bandwidth to start to think about. But it's going to affect you. It's like voting. The people that end up being in office are going to be there whether you vote or not. Like, don't you want to have a say in it? So the laws are going to happen. Like, things are going to be decided, and don't you want to be someone who's contributing to that conversation or to the process, rather than having no input at all.
Absolutely. And I think that there's such power in this, having a seat at the table, either being the person that is sitting in that chair or the one that is supporting them to get there. And also the person who's in the chair, whether it's the PA or the legislator or whoever it is, you have an interest yourself in your own practice and how your practice patterns are affected by this legislation. And so being aware of who is in office, being aware of who is at the table, being aware of what discussions are happening and how you can either make a call or send an email, just staying in touch with what's going on across the country and in your state from a professional standpoint. And oftentimes the best source of information for that is your state or national organization.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, part of our newsletters for the PSPA always includes a legislative brief. So there's just so many things that happen at the state level. I mean, we had our big legislative win last year where we updated our PA Practice Act. That was like, I mean, I started with the PSPA probably in 2013, and it was literally, I had been working on it my entire time. It was like loss after loss after loss, and you just have to keep coming back to the table, and you get those incremental, you meet people, you build. But that's what it's almost impossible as an individual to do that. That's why having the benefit of the experience of people who've been doing it longer than, I mean, and there are people who are doing it longer than I had been doing it. So and they have connections that they built, and you kind of learn from them, and you just kind of chip away at these processes. And we got a lot. I mean, it's the pieces that we were able to get into our legislation really positively impact PAs practicing with changing counter signature laws, again allowing, like, permanently placing PAs on our medical and osteopathic boards. In the past, we rotated seats where we had like a seat every 20 years or something like that, when we have such a huge percentage of licensees in the state that weren't really represented in that space. And again, a lot of it's parity with what other states are doing, and across the country. We were one of the few places that really didn't have that permanent presence on any of the regulatory boards. So these are things that won't happen if you don't have government affairs committees, and you don't have a relationship. We pay lobbyists. I mean, that's just part of how you do business, and how you legislate things at the state and national level. You have to have that lobbyist kind of go between, and that's paid for through the PSPA's membership, but also we have a political action committee as well. So all these things are not possible without your state organization and I mean, and again, we have some money that we work with, but it's volunteer work, and it's understandable if you're not the one who wants to be at the table, but you can support the people who do, by being a member.
We interrupt this broadcast with a very important announcement. You are not making enough money. Your practice and your physician do not understand the value you are adding to their patients, and therefore, you aren't earning what you're worth. If in the past your requests for a raise have been met with one single word, no. If you're working more hours than ever and seeing more patients, but you're not making any more money and you're feeling pissed about it. If you feel like you've hit the ceiling of your income band, this guide is for you. I've compiled the 5 most costly and most common mistakes that PAs make when asking for a raise, and I've told you how to avoid them and what to do instead. Download your free guide at tracybingaman.com/mistakes. I think as a profession, it's very frustrating to look around in this medical system that has existed for a lot longer than PAs have been a part of it and say, I don't feel represented with who is sitting at the table for the executive board of my hospital, or for the managers of my practice, or for the administrative team of this multi-specialty group I'm a part of. So in a big healthcare system, you're going to have a CEO who's probably a business person, but you're also going to have a CMO who most likely is an MD or a DO. And you're maybe going to have a chief nursing officer who is a nurse who went on to either further their education or become an administrator and a leader in that capacity. And I've never had a CPAO. It doesn't even exist.
Yeah, right, right. I am aware of some clinical structures where they have like an APP, lead or chief APP kind of thing, where it's like they're usually over both NPs and PAs, and sometimes they wrap CRNAs in there, sometimes they wrap nurse midwives in there. But yeah, it's rare. It's usually only at the really big institutions. It doesn't exist where I am. So it does feel like, it's hard to have a say or have a voice in the organization when, there's nobody in the C-suite who's really looking at what you're doing and advocating for your role and how important we are in the hospital system.
This is a tip that I learned. I used to work at a big health system, and we updated our HR systems when I was there. And at the time I was looking for a job. So I would see a job listing. I would say, what department is this in? Okay, cardiology, and a opening for cardiology PA. And then I would search someone who I knew, a friend of mine who's in cardiology. And so I could see her in the network HR system. But then you could zoom out and say, who is that person's manager? Who is that person's manager? Who is that person's manager? And are any of these people that I've crossed paths with in the past? Was I on a committee with them? Do I know who they are? Did they used to manage general surgery if I'm looking to make a move from general surgery to cardiology? But the interesting thing is, for each individual in the organization, you can zoom all the way out to see who their up-level administrator is. So if you are a part of a big organization like that, I would do some investigating. I would check it out. I would say, who is in that C-suite? Who is the CEO? Who is the CFO? Who is the CMO? And who are those people? And how do you feel that those people reflect you? Are they a similar age demographic to you? Are they of a similar sex identification as you? Do they work in a profession that you are a part of? Because when you look at that leadership, for better or for worse, if you aren't represented there, you are not going to have the same voice. You're not going to be seen and heard in the same way as if there is someone in one of those roles who does look like you, act like you, talk like you, or once practiced in the area of medicine that you're practicing in.
Yeah, I mean, it's really, it's hard to dismantle the current structure. And again, I know there are some hospital systems, some bigger hospital systems that have done a better job of incorporating APPs into their leadership structure and reporting structure. I haven't had the benefit of working for a place like that before. But yeah, I mean, it would really benefit to have someone, in that system, in the system, at large. I mean, and then there's the difficulty of being a private practice as well, which is a whole nother, it's a whole nother problem. Um, but yeah, all that to say that, and this all does wrap back into, because not only can your state organizations help you sometimes with, your, not just your what you're allowed to do practice wise, but there's a lot of networking that can be done. And, we have with PSPA, we have a leadership academy that is something that you can apply into. And they do a leadership and kind of admin forum as well at the yearly conference, at the annual conference, that has been really good. In years past, they've talked about onboarding. They've talked about kind of structure, like the way that that different systems are structured, and kind of done panels about that. So those are kind of good ways, and being a part of, especially because it is depending on where you live, kind of what the health systems are doing locally. Going to your state organization for some of those things is really useful, because you can kind of network and find out, well, is this existing somewhere else? And it takes work, and it's like really hard to put yourself out there, but if that exists somewhere else, you can bring it home, to your own practice and your own hospital or your private practice, and advocate for yourself that way, to say like, look, this is what's existing other places. I don't feel that there's much voice for me here.
Yeah. How can we change that?
How can we change that? And that's hard. It's like all of this. It's really tough, especially when you're early in your career, um, both to try to become involved with some of these legislative issues, but also these structural issues. When you're just trying to learn medicine and help people and things like that. But they're also important. So, it's really important to try to carve out time, at least to understand it. And again, if you're not the one who wants to make these changes, find those people who are and try to support them, either at the state level or in your own system and or practice.
Yeah. Here's the bottom line. Wherever you work, no matter what you do or what organization you work for, even if you run your own business, even if you think about this in the context of running a household and raising kids, there are going to be what I think of as setting specific challenges. So whatever setting you're in, it's going to present different challenges. So you and I are practicing in different places. We have different dynamics, different interpersonal relationships, different challenges with patients, different workflow problems. And those are setting specific challenges. And if something is happening and you're stubbing your toe on it, or you're being recurrently frustrated by something, can you identify the problem? Can you come up with a solution? And can you find a way to implement that? You don't need to be the CMO to do that. You can affect the microclimate of your office, of your exam room, of your specific practice in a multi-specialty group that has practices all over the city. You can create change without a title or leadership assigning you to a committee or doing something. You can simply see a problem. PAs are, patients are being discharged with too many narcotics when they have a baby. Okay, that's the problem. Okay, how can we address the problem? How can I change that? Who do I need to talk to? What do I need to come, and sort of back into what's the ideal solution? What resources do I have at my disposal? And you can make a really significant impact on your life, your office, your patient's quality of life, and the care that they're receiving. And you don't have to have a title whatsoever to be able to do that.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes we're talking about, we started out talking about like big, like big overhead issues and, zoom out kind of issues, but it does feel, that can feel really overwhelming. A really nice kind of answer to the burnout that a lot of us are facing is kind of getting granular, to say, all right, like this is what's happening in my day to day, and this is what I have power to affect. And I'm going to try for one small change to make my office life, my patient throughput is killing me, and I need to try to improve that. I have an idea on how to fix that, and I'm going to work to implement that. And that's like a small, tangible thing that can come with a lot of fulfillment on the other end of it, to say I did that, and I look, it's better, and that was my idea. And that's not, that doesn't involve driving to your state capital, shaking hands with anybody, or meeting with your CMO and trying to start a new like APP committee because there isn't one at your hospital or whatever.
Yeah.
So,
I think that you can attack it. It's, multifactorial, right? So if we say,
exactly.
hey, how can we cure this disease or how can we treat this symptom? It's
Hmm.
very rarely just one thing. So can you make
Hmm.
a small change to your schedule? Can you change the wording of how your receptionists are speaking to patients about the expectations for this visit? Because you're getting the same question over and over. And in my experience, you notice something's happening, or there's a day where you're like, every patient seems confused about this. And then it starts to sort of permeate. Okay, we're not educating people well if they don't understand that by the time they get to this point in the process. How can we fix it? Let's back up. What can we say to them earlier? What can
Hmm.
we explain to them so they have appropriate expectations about their postoperative recovery? And it's
Hmm.
oftentimes very small tweaks. And it's going to make your life better because you're not answering that question 72 times a week, but
Right.
it's also going to improve patients' care. They're going to
Right.
have a better understanding and ownership of their process, of what to expect.
Hmm.
And it can really improve a lot of things. And you are the best person to fix that in your practice because you are
Hmm.
there and you know who's saying what and who is causing this confusion and what
Hmm.
process can be put in place to improve it. No one knows that better than you.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, and this is something that when I have, back when I was working full time and, had people reporting to me or hiring people and doing more mentoring, this is something that and this also circles back to talking about advocacy at the state level or national level. I mean, nobody knows your job like you do. Like you're the advocate. Like you're the one who needs to say, like, this is what I'm an expert in this. I know this data, or you've read the evidence. You know exactly what needs to happen for all these things. So you're communicating with a consultant, or if it's your clinical job, or you're communicating with the C-suite if you're talking about administratively. Like people, no one does what you do every single you do. You're the expert in the care that you're providing and what you need and what your patients need. You're the expert as a PA practicing medicine when you're going to speak to, the legislators, who you'd be surprised some of them still don't know what a PA is. Or they like, oh, I've seen them before, but they don't understand the issues that we're facing on the ground like you do. So recognizing your own expertise and recognizing your own value in that, as no one else is in your shoes, and not feeling like, well, people must know. No, nobody's with you. No one's in your shoes facing what you face, and being your own advocate is challenging. But there's value. You have value because no one sees what you see, and trying to cash in on that value to improve your day-to-day life, improve your job satisfaction, decrease your burnout, improve your patients' lives, you know, um, remove hurdles to practice or red tape this is like at a state level or even at a system level. Those are all things that you're able to use your value to cash in and hopefully fix if you can step back out of your daily drudges and try to do it, which is hard. I mean, that's the balance of trying to find um, the motivation, the time to do that. And we've mentioned this before. There's seasons. We have seasons in our career, in our lives. Um, and sometimes it's not the change season. Sometimes sometimes it's the survive season. And I had a long survive season, so I do understand that. But you need to also sometimes take that step back and recognize the value that you can have and impact
Yeah.
that you can have.
Yeah. And I think to me, I see that stepping back to see the problem, seeing how you can make an impact on fixing it, and then saying, hey, this is going to take time and energy and effort and conversations in addition to what I'm already doing. It's not instead of what you're already doing. You're still practicing clinically. You're still doing all of these things. To me, when you say that, I think that's an investment. That's an investment of time and energy that you're going to put forth now that's going to pay off in the future for you. And also, if you're one of these people who's like, oh, I feel guilty or selfish for just doing it for me, that's an investment in you're making it better for the PA student you precepted last week, who one day will be in the position that you're in. You're making it better for the patient. You're making it better for the profession at a state and national level. And that's not nothing. It's not selfish, and it's definitely worthwhile. And some of the changes that you get to benefit from in your practice now happened because someone else invested time and energy a long time ago. I just got goosebumps. I'm like, because someone
Yeah,
else
it's
said,
that,
yes,
that video of like, let's lift, like I'll lift you up and you lift me up, and then they'll lift, the next person. And it's not going to change unless you change it. And, you don't have to eat the whole pie at once. You can take small bites, so it's, it's doable. And yes, we're all busy, and it's all about finding, a balance that is sustainable as well. But you can add those things in, and still keep your sanity and keep your
sure.
family life and things like
Yeah.
that.
So I'm glad you said family life, because I was looking for an opportunity to
Heard it.
change the subject. So I want to change gears a little bit and talk about your career and your work-life balance, this work-life integration. So you are, just like me, a mom of a whole lot of kids.
That's a
We
lot.
both have 5 kids,
We have 10 kids this year. That's a
10
lot of
kids
kids.
between the two of us. That's a lot
People,
of kids.
I have people are like, you have 5. I'm like, it's a lot. It's like so much. It's just like so many kids.
I
It's
say
like a
that.
lot of
I'm like,
kids.
it's a lot of kids. It's like a circus over here.
Oh my goodness.
So how have you personally navigated that? So I didn't know this before. Your
Yeah.
firstborn was born 3 days before you graduated from PA
hmm
school.
Yeah. My water broke. It was crazy, crazy story. Like anytime it's so funny if I see my people, the like people who were, my faculty at the time, they still just like shake their heads. So my water broke. This was back, I think they probably would keep you now, but back then I went in and they're like, oh, you can go home and see what happens. We can induce you now, but you can go. And I was like, oh no, I don't want to be induced. Last thing I want. I had said that to myself all the time. So of course I had to be induced. But um, so I was like, the last thing I had to do before graduation was this 15-minute presentation as like, that was our elective. Instead of an elective exam, we had to do this presentation about something to do with the elective that we did. So that was the only thing I had hanging over my head for graduation. Now, I'm sure if I just
And
had like,
giving birth.
well, right, and giving birth. But I'm sure if I had just like emailed, like, here's my presentation, I probably could have just emailed it to them and they probably would have excused me. But I was, you get like hyper focused. I was like, all right, I got to do this presentation. So I'm like driving home from the hospital. I'm like, hey, my water broke. I'm going to have this baby in like the next 24 hours. Like, can I come in and do my presentation real quick? And they were like, I guess so. And so like, and they're like, literally at the end, my program director was like, I'm sure all you said was great, but like, I just can't stop thinking about the fact that your water is broken right now and you're basically in labor. Like, what are you doing here? So yeah, it was wild. And so like I said, it makes it easy to know how long I've been practicing, because he was born on the 28th, and I walked at graduation on the 31st. So it was just, and I just like felt like I earned that, and so it was insane in hindsight, but I really wanted to do it. So yeah, I mean, I have always known I wanted a family. I chose the PA profession because like I said before, this was my second career. I didn't want to be in training for a long time. My husband's a physician, and we were both starting our medical like education at the same time. So maybe if we weren't both looking at training there, I could have made different choice, but I was really happy with the ability to go to school for 26 months and then have a career in medicine. But I also knew I wanted a family. So we just kind of, I like studied for my boards, took my like boards when he was 6 weeks old. Started my first job. He was 4 months old. So I started it as a ERPA, and I love that. I had great coworkers, great practice. But then after we we had our second, my husband had started his residency program as an ER resident. And so then, we kind of had two nights and weekends potential careers, and it didn't make sense. And so this is part of what makes the PA career so great, is that I was able to shift to a 9 to 5 kind of situation. And so I went from ER to what I still do now. I do anesthesia assessments for patients who are preoperative for cancer surgery. So I work at Fox Chase Cancer Center, and we have an anesthesia assessment clinic there. Since we're regional, we take patients from like kind of all over the place, and we just make sure they're optimized before they come in for their cancer surgeries. And that position and that place in particular is really what was able to keep me in full-time practice while I was also able to build my family, because they have a daycare there. So we moved a mile away from the hospital while he was traveling to New Jersey for his residency. And so my life was like, the daycare wasn't right on campus, it was down the street. So my life was like daycare, hospital, home. It was just like very all in one place. And it really, like I said, it was like the glue, because I loved it there. It kept me there. Like there was a couple times I looked at other jobs, but just knowing that my kids were so well taken care of, and the the childcare and early child education they provided was just like second to none. Creative Beginnings is what it's called. I have like a special place in my heart for them.
Mm,
I think they just celebrated like 40th anniversary or something like that. They've
nice.
been around for a long time. So I had an employer who valued my family, my my children's safety and care, which allowed me to be secure in their care while I did my job. And so, yeah, I was the primary breadwinner for that period. Um, and then we just kept having kids every couple of years on a schedule. Boys, all boys. So we just like literally like,
I know
and they
the
were all
feeling.
like, my kids were all the same, like all within like a couple ounces of 8 pounds, all 21 and a half inches. Like I had like the same kid. I mean, they're so different, but
Yeah.
still, I had kind of had like kept having the same kid over. It was like so funny.
You're like, we're
Um,
here for the consistency. We're
yeah,
here.
I
Yep.
like it. Yep. Yeah. So, I say we stick with what we know. So yeah, we kind of kept that train going. And then, I kind of was on a trajectory for my career. I kind of took over as a clinical director of our clinic. I had, people reporting to me. I was involved in a lot of committees within the hospital and process improvement things that was really fulfilling, from a career standpoint, like in that silo. And the family stuff, we were just making work. It was a lot of survival. It was a lot of just like ships passing in the night. And, I think my husband's situation was difficult too, because he was a resident working really long hours. His co-residents were going home and be able to sleep, and he had to come home and be dad. And so we worked really hard. That was a very hardworking season of our life. And it was just like we wanted a family, and we just, that was something that we always knew we wanted to do. And so we just, it was a choice we made to make it work and to work really hard in that season. So then once my husband was able to finish residency and get a position, um, as kind of an attending, post training, we were kind of able to take a step back. And then it was the question of like, what do I want? I've kind of curated this career for myself, and I'm at, like I said, I had this kind of trajectory in kind of leadership. And um, we had our fifth baby. I went back to work full time, and it was just like that was the point. And I think it's because I could finally kind of think about it again when
Mm,
we were just
it
getting
wasn't a choice.
through. It
Yep.
really wasn't a choice. I mean, the
Yep.
blind, you can't think of anything else. Like, and we made it work. And I think there's something, it was great for my kids to see us both working hard. They were really kind of little, so I'm not sure how much they remember, um, but I think there's nothing wrong with that. I think it's fine to know that like you work hard and you do what you need to do. And we're in a different place now. But it took a solid like year for me to kind of say like, who am I? How much do I need my career for my identity? What does my career as an identity mean to me? Um, if I don't have this leadership role, am I still a valuable part of the PA profession?
Mm-hmm.
Because I had worked really hard to get here, and I'm just, like I said, the type that really likes to make change and be involved. Would I be okay with not having that control and role and power? Um, and it took a while for me to kind of understand that, but I realized that at the end of the day, I felt like my kids weren't getting my best, and that I was the most patient, I was the most understanding at work. And then I would get home and I just wouldn't have much left. And because I had a choice, I was like, all right, let's try this. And I went part-time for about 6 months. Which was silly, which is sometimes can be a trap, because I was doing like 5 days of work in 3 days. So that's a whole nother conversation on
Yep.
you got to navigate that well if you're
Yeah.
dropping back, because they'll do whatever
Yep.
they'll do whatever you let them do
They'll
to
get
you.
as
And
much
that,
out of you as
yes,
they can.
they'll
Yep.
suck it out. Yeah, exactly. So I navigated that poorly. I just was so desperate to have some extra days. But so I probably would do that differently now. But then I went to per diem, and now, I cover for people's vacations, and I come in and visit and say hi. And I don't have any of the administrative burden, which was really what was weighing me down, and is really, and again, it's opportunity, but it's challenging. And so now I just do the patient care stuff, and my patients are amazing. It really like fills my cup, to get to go in and see people and help them, and flex that part of my brain muscle, and have the balance to have time and energy to be mindful about the nutrition I provide my family, and focus on my health and wellness, which I really wasn't able to do before. um, so that trade-off has been really worth it, in the long run, and have some of the volunteer opportunities that I don't know that I would have been able to accept a nomination to the Osteopathic Medical Board, just because of how it's hard. Like, it's tough to have so much on your plate and want to do something, but not know that if you have the bandwidth to accept another thing. And if I was working full time still, it would have been. And I actually step back from PSPA at one point, because I was pregnant with my fifth kid, and it was too much. So that's when I like left my board seat and didn't really run again. I was still involved in some committees, but I did have to step back because it just was becoming too much. And so it's been nice to find that kind of middle ground where I get to be very and again, this is all a privilege. I feel very privileged to make these choices, because I wasn't in a place to make such specific choices in the past. But yeah, I've been able to, and because of the career I have as a PA, it's provided me this opportunity that I can still have a foot in my clinical life and do that. But the opportunities that I get for volunteering, I do some guest lecturing as well, which is also very fulfilling to me, to get to interact with students and to give, pass on that knowledge that I've gained over my career feels really good as well. Again, something that I probably wouldn't be able to seek out or accept if I was working full time. So it's really just been shifting gears and saying, what do I want with the experience that I've gained over this time as a PA, and how can I, kind of do the things that I enjoy, and not working full time, but still being fulfilled in those pieces.
Busy working mom. I used to wear it like a badge of honor. Then I realized that I was drowning in to-dos and running around like a lunatic, all because this key piece was missing. I wasn't clear on what my deeply held values were. And when everything's important, nothing is important. Now that I've done the work and figured out what I value most, it makes life so much easier. Those core values serve as the compass for the direction of my life, and they inform my heck yes and my hell no responses to each and every opportunity. I've taken the process to curate core values and boiled it down into 3 simple steps. I've laid out the exact process to gain clarity so you can start applying your deeply held values to day-to-day life. To start living a purpose-driven life full of what you love and void of all that other shit, download your core value curator today. The link's waiting for you in the show notes. If I have learned anything in this life, it is that success oftentimes might look like you thought it would, and it doesn't feel the way that you want your life to feel. And what I'm hearing from you is that it wasn't one specific thing that happened that you said, I've got to get out of here, but rather you said, with this latest addition to our family, I don't feel like this is sustainable. This doesn't feel like it's working well for our family anymore. What changes can we make to bring me home more? For me not to step away completely, but still to be able to find fulfillment and joy and purpose and have a passion for something that I love outside of our home. And that's awesome. And that's great. And everyone should have that purpose and that passion, whatever it is. And if your current setup doesn't feel good, it's okay to look around and to try to make some changes to improve that.
Yeah, I mean, I had really invested a lot into my career, and that was fulfilling, on that side. But talking about, seasons, I was coming into a season, and it's interesting when your kids are little, it is busy. I'm not saying it's not busy, but it does change when they get a little older, the way that they need you and the way that your day looks. And the school hours and school activities are different, and they don't really fit in with, they don't fit into like a two, you know, full time working parent kind of family, which is really unfortunate in our society, but it is a reality. And, starting to see those things, it's like, okay, I've invested a lot into this career part of my life. I really think it's time to, because I can, because I'm able, because I have that privilege, I really want to start investing more into my family life, into my children's lives, because I'm able to. And while I could, sometimes you can make choices. You can, outsource certain parts of your day and their day. Um, I was able to look at what our finances were and what my career goals were, and decide that, I'm not gonna outsource these things. I'm gonna, take a step back and do, this is going to be more of my focus. And, I kind of just told myself, and looked at my career, like, okay, I was able to get to this place in the first, 8 years of my career. I could get back there, you know, if I want to. I'm not worried that I'll never achieve anything as a PA ever again because I decided to take these steps back, I really am confident, just if I want to. I know I could dive I could like dive head first and really get to a level of, you know, success that is traditional from a career standpoint. If I want to, I'm confident of that. Um, what's funny is that the further away I get from my full-time position, the more I'm not sure that I will want to do that.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
it's interesting.
I had a lot of these things that you're talking about, this identity crisis sounds a little dramatic, but I
But
did
it
have that.
is.
Yes, when I was
It
getting ready
is.
to quit a job that was burning me out and
It's like a
making me
quiet
sick.
identity crisis. It's like
Yes.
very small inside
Yes.
you, but it's
Yes.
happening. Yeah.
And there was a little voice inside my head that said, you will never get back to this place. You will never again have the opportunity to do this kind of
Mhm.
advanced robotic surgery on this kind of tumor in this specific way. And if you step away now, the door is
Mhm.
shutting and you will never be able to come back through it. And I like,
That's like
there was,
scarcity mindset, right?
yes,
Like
I was
that's
like,
what
wait a
we
minute.
struggle with in so many facets of our life. The scarcity
Yes.
mindset, like never again, only, oh, it's going to go away. That's just not, I mean, living with that abundance mindset is hard, but yeah, I mean, it can apply to so many things.
Yeah.
That's exactly, I had such an exact same feeling.
Yeah. And here's the thing about the way that we introduce ourselves in this world. Um, I typically say, hey, I'm Tracy. I'm a PA. I'm a wife. I'm a mom to five. And although those things are all true, those are roles that I play. Those are things that I do. Those are ways that I show up in this world for other people. That's not actually who I am. Who I am is a multi-passionate woman on a quest to help PAs make more money and have an impact and to leave a legacy that I'm proud of. And along the way, I am in partnership with a husband that makes me a wife. I am parenting kids that makes me a mom. I am a PA that makes me a professional. And it's an important reminder that we are human beings, not human doings. We are not defined by the things that we do. We are not made worthy or enough based on our productivity or the specific value that we add. We are worthy and enough, period. That is the entire
Mhm.
sentence.
Yeah, I mean, when I was going through this like internal, dialogue and struggle of it, I read this great article about burnout, and it was written by a physician, and it was from the, you know, standpoint of like academic institution and kind of this like toxic work environment, but this individual really loved the patients and really loved his, group that he was in, and his work was passionate. He was passionate for his work, but the department and the administrative situation of like the academics of medicine, which again, as a PA, I think sometimes there are other things that physicians have to battle with as far as, or not just physicians, but if you're an academic institution, some of those expectations are insane, and that's another part of the system of medicine that needs to change. But regardless, that's kind of what this was focused on, and it really helped me to realize that it's like, you know if you something were to happen to you, and you have some tragedy, they're gonna hire another PA. They're gonna, your patients will find someone else to see. Your family will never be the same. You know, so your framing of your life as and it's important in your career, but it's not that you're not as much to your institution as maybe they are to you. And that's okay, but you have to treat it that way as a business. Like I think the article was called like your institution won't love you back or something like that. But it's hard because we are passionate people and we care, and you're not going to get into this practice of medicine if you don't have a passion for it, because it's really difficult. And the road is difficult. So, just remembering that, like, being passionate and being passionate for your work doesn't mean that, you are your work. And that's hard. And it takes time to learn that, especially when you're an achievement driven, goal setter who wants to always be and do. Like you said, like you want to be a being or you want
Yeah.
to be a doing. I
You want
want
to
to
be
be
a
a human
doing.
doing. I want to be that. I want
Yeah.
to be someone
It
who's
makes me
always
feel
doing.
good. It makes me feel good.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah. And
exactly.
people notice and you get accolades and it feels great.
Hmm.
But
Hmm.
sometimes it feels great, followed by it feels empty and
Yeah.
exhausting and like
Right.
it's not what you're supposed to be doing.
Yeah. Like you said, that's success. Like you've got some traditional or some, success that on paper looks great, but how does it feel? What does your home life look like? Or what's your health like? How are you healthy? Are you able to eat right? Are you able to exercise? Do you see the sun? It's like, are you able to do those other things that are important as a human being, to interact and be a part of? And it's really hard. It's a lot of rat race, and, it's a lot of a track that you feel like you've gotten on that you can't get off of.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, taking that step back and trying to find a way to check all those boxes, um, is worth it. If you're in a place that, you can even get there. And a lot of it's finding good mentors and finding people and just knowing that it's possible, like hearing your podcast and hearing someone say like, I lived one way and I was in this mindset and I thought, wait a minute. And that even lets you know that that's a possible thought in your, it's like you can't be something you've never seen before. So it is important to talk to each other as PAs, as women, as parents, as, finding a community that you can bounce things off of. And like, I'm not crazy for wanting different, am I? And like, no, like there are multiple ways to be and do out there, and finding what works for you is only going to happen if you ask those questions and seek out that knowledge.
Yeah. And that hearing that transformation of, I used to feel like this and then these things changed and now my life looks this way, is extremely powerful. If you've only ever looked around and seen it, the burned out, exhausted, overworked, overscheduled, I will work and work and work and work and produce and produce and produce and make RVUs and dollars and see patients and then die. That's not a good,
Right.
not a good
Right.
plan. Like, we need a new plan.
Yeah.
So awesome. Well, I think this conversation is going to hit home for so many people for so many different reasons. It's going to encourage people to get involved and join their organization, and that they can change things from a global level, from a federal level, from a state level, and also affect that microclimate at their own practice and really bring it home and change things in their home. And that's a place where you have an incredible amount of influence. And the great thing about home is that you don't have to deal with administration, right? You can
Yeah,
just
you are
start.
the
You are
administration.
the administration. You can just start like, this is what we value, and here's how we're
Unless
going to
you
show up in this world.
Yeah, unless you have those, like, toddler teenagers that are bossing you around. Maybe they may be the
You
administration for a
do.
time.
You
Yeah.
do have an assertive 4-year-old who thinks she's
Yeah.
running the show over here, but
Yeah.
yes, I
We're
think there's
we're our
value.
youngest is 5, so he's definitely coming around, and 4 and 5 was a pretty golden age for my kids. Well, but we have a 13-year-old, so we're coming back around
Yeah.
to
Yep.
the
I hear you. I hear you. Awesome. Well,
Oh
thank you
my
for
god.
sharing your time and your story
Yeah.
and all of your wisdom with us. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, if anyone, I'm on Instagram and Twitter. I'm at Hillary Snyder on both. So, reach out. If anybody wants to be in touch, I'm happy to be in touch in those
Awesome.
ways.
We'll link that in the show notes so everyone knows how to find you. And thank you again for coming on the
Sounds
show.
good. Thanks, Tracy.
I'm doing a victory dance right now because you did it. You took the time to tune in, to reach for a better life, and to take care of you. Did our time together go by way too fast for anyone else? Head to fulfilledasmom.com for show notes and all the discount codes from today's show. You now have the tools and knowledge to change your life. Go blaze your trail, take that step, make the shift, and do the work to create fulfillment in your life today.